Welcome everyone to, this is our fifth and final session of the 2021 Arts Now Leadership Institute. So good to be together always. I am really excited to spend our time together thinking about our big picture goals of the program, of the work of Create California, talking about some various strategies to achieve these big goals. And figuring out how to break off a manageable chunk of work for this year, because that's really the challenge, right? How to find the baby steps, how to find the path to get to where you want to go. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, and hopeful that you'll walk away with a handful of really clear, achievable, shorter term goals for yourself that you'll be able to work towards in the next 9 months or so. So glad to be together with you. I just also we're going to be saying this a couple of times throughout this session, but just the reminder that your action plans are due on October 15th. And these are key documents for us to evaluate your plan for the year and make sure that we can process the grant fund that you'll be receiving. So we'll get more into that. But let me make sure everybody knows the Create California team. Chantal has given me control of the slides here, which is very dangerous. So I'm Adelaide Kuhn. I'm program director at Create California, and this is the rest of the program team. So I will pass it over to Alexia to introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It's super great to be with all of you again. My name is Alexia Martin. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the Arts Now program manager. I will pass it to Caitlin.
Hello, I'm Caitlin Lanoff, pronouns she, her, program and communications manager for Create California, and I'll pass it to Chantal.
Hi everyone, my name is Chantal Ovali Santoyo. My pronouns are she, her, ella, and I'm the administrative assistant here at Create California. So happy to be here.
All right, so we have done this a few times, but it's super important to keep going over. So in order to center race and equity in our conversation today and work to create an inclusive space, we want to acknowledge the violence against and oppression of Indigenous people that is woven into the fabric of our country. Our intention is for this land acknowledgement to be an expression of gratitude and appreciation to those whose territory we reside on, and a way of honoring Indigenous people who have been living and working on the land for hundreds of years and continue to live and work on the land today. I already see some land acknowledgements in the chat. Thank you so much. Again, you can text your zip code to the number on the screen. Also going to the website, and then we also have our land acknowledgement, which we dropped a few times in the chat. I can go ahead and drop that again in the chat, but I just want to acknowledge that I'm on Tongva land, and that's where I reside, and I want to honor them and show as much gratitude as possible. Yes, everybody, love it. Thank you so much. I'm going to drop the link in the chat. Oh no, I think Caitlin already got it. Great, thank you so much. So we can move on now to the meeting agreements.
Great. This is the list that we've been working on adding to over the past few sessions. Can we get a volunteer to read through these quickly? Somebody hop off mute. I think it's good to say them out loud each time, just so that they're top of mind before we get into our discussion.
I don't mind reading them. I had to finish chewing my snack. Sorry.
Thanks, Mina.
Ouch. Is that oops or ops?
Oops, oops. Oops, we made a typo.
Ouch. Oops, explain. Throw glitter, not shade. Be respectful of time constraints. Give space, take space. Be an active listener. Assume positive intent while also checking for impact. Know when to step up or step back. Show your kids and or pets. Challenge the idea, not the person. Show up with authenticity and be generous with praise.
Thank you so much, Mina. Great to review those each time, just so we are remembering the kind of space that we are hoping to create and work together in.
So today's agenda, we are going to start off with a community building icebreaker like we always do. Overview of Arts Now Communities program, go over the goals, strategies, and action plans. Then we'll have a timeline exercise, then a little mindfulness break. We'll go over SMARTIE goals. We'll have individual reflection, a breakout, and then we'll review action plans, the document, and go over some deadlines with some time for Q&A. But the main goal of this session is to help you create one goal for your action plan and to leave with a list of other goals for inspiration. So we can move on to our next activity. So community building, y'all kind of know how this goes. You're going to get into groups and you're going to share your name, pronouns, and the location you're currently at. And then sharing what's the best piece of advice you have been given with the others in your group.
All right, we're all back. Any gems anyone wants to share from that conversation? Quality pieces of advice that would help us all. I know I'm accepting advice.
I can go ahead. I think I got this right. If I got it wrong, Abe, please correct me. But I think it was change your thoughts, change your world. I thought that was very good and helpful.
Great one. Wonderful. Okay, well, thank you. Let's move on to just a really quick overview. This is content that I've had individual conversations about this content with, I think, each of you on this call. So I want to go through it pretty quickly, but it's an important reminder. Just these big picture goals, what we're all working towards, is always important to reconnect with every once in a while, right? So we are working to increase public funding for arts education via two primary vehicles, LCFF and Title I. You know, lately in the past year or so, this program has focused primarily on local control funding formula as a stream of funding for arts education. But if you are working in a district that has Title I schools, we have a lot of resources about how schools and districts can use Title I funds to support arts education. So that is another slightly different conversation that we'd love to have with you. So when you begin your technical assistance conversations with Alexia, definitely something to bring up. The goal of this increased funding is to eliminate inequities in access to and participation in arts education. And here I just want to emphasize the access and participation piece. Like, you know, the first step is to get access, to make sure that there are the teachers and the courses available to students in school. But the participation is also a key piece, because we know that, you know, in some situations, the arts classes are where students get pulled out to have, you know, focus on language learning or support in math learning or special education. So it's a time when we have seen that there are barriers to participation. Even when there is access, there are barriers to participation for certain students. So that's why we really want to call both of those out in our big picture goals. And then moving on to these, the strategies, we have building a coalition, assessment of the current status of arts education in your community, in your district. That's very important. Building relationships with school leaders. So, school leaders broadly, certainly school board members and superintendents, but VAPA coordinators, school principals, teacher leaders, other leaders of, say, for example, PTA, PTO, but really that relationship building piece. Participation in arts education planning is a piece that is very important for some, in some contexts, some districts and counties. We know that it is always easier to allocate funding. If there's, for example, one-time funding that comes up, it's always easier for districts to allocate that funding if there's a plan in place and an agreed upon the sort of vision for arts education in a district. And then finally, increasing visibility for arts in your district or county. So I want to note with these strategies, these are some of the strategies. It's not all of the strategies. We're very open to other ideas. And the monthly meetups, the Arts Now meetups that we'll have each month from now until May, that's really a space where leaders are sharing the strategies that they're using on the ground, what's working, what isn't working, and it's a space for creativity and innovation with these strategies. So our hope at Create California and with this program is to sort of lay out some different paths for you, but ultimately this is a choose your own adventure situation. So you know better than we can know what strategies will be effective, what strategies need to be prioritized in your particular community. And so with the action plan document, our hope is that you will pick one or more of these strategies and map it onto your smaller, shorter term goals of what you're trying to accomplish in the next 8-9 months. And we will be talking more about that action planning tool, but just, I think, thinking more about this choose your own adventure situation, we want to take a moment and have everybody reflect on where you feel you are with these strategies and what is feeling like a priority for you this year. Trying to advance the slide for you, Alexia.
No worries, take your time. It's always kind of strange. Yeah, so this is just a visual representation of everything that we're talking about. We want to validate that change can happen incrementally, and we all have to start somewhere. So we're all in different stages, and it's not necessarily linear, but for this purpose and just to make things a little bit easier, we've put it on a timeline. So as you could see, we have build a coalition, march kind of in that 1-2 area, assess current arts education status, and then we have this increased visibility of the arts in your district or county. And that's just placed there to just remind us that this can happen throughout the process. Then we have forge relationships with school leaders and participate in arts education planning. So we do have a Jamboard set up, and it has the timeline on that Jamboard. And all you're going to do is put your name on a sticky, and then you can place it kind of where you're at. Whether you pick the build a coalition strategy or forge relationships with school leaders, you can kind of put your name where you're at, and you can also pick more than one, but it should be, maybe your first action item or first strategy that you are kind of going to endeavor on. So if we can go ahead and pull up that Jamboard, it's always a thing with technology.
Everybody, I imagine, used Jamboard before. You click on the left-hand panel, there's a little square, click that, a sticky note will pop up, and that's where you can write your name and place yourself on this board.
And I do see Kaylin, thank you so much, put the link in the chat too, so you can all have access. So we'll just take some time to put our names on the timeline over here.
And yeah, name your coalition however you want to put yourself on here is just fine. You can definitely be working on more than one, so you can have 2 stickies. I see Jenny Ann, you figured that out.
Great. I think everyone has placed their stickies. Oh, I see some more. I'll give some more time. Awesome. So it does look like we are, on various places on this timeline, and that's totally okay and great, actually. So hopefully this has helped, and you can kind of see other groups or individuals that are possibly doing the same thing that you're doing, and maybe that would be a great point of contact to kind of just brainstorm ideas off of one another. So does anybody have any questions regarding this or anything that they would like to share or say? Or maybe anything that they're noticing?
I think that this is helpful. It really gives some sequence. It makes things a little bit more sequential and gives you goals looking forward.
Great. Yeah. It was definitely the purpose to try to help to make it a little bit more linear, maybe give a little bit more structure, but absolutely. Then we see Debbie in the chat, the timeline is also rinse and repeat. Yes, definitely. Thank you. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to share? If not, that's totally okay. I'll just leave a moment to see if anyone else would like to make a comment.
This would be a great chart for us to share with our board of directors, those of us that have boards.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah, we can definitely send this out to you in our follow-up email so everybody can have this for themselves. Thank you so much, Allison. Great. So we can move on. Thank you, Chantal. So this is just another visual representation of everything that we've been talking about before. It's kind of like a hierarchy graphic, but maybe there's a better word that we could use. But as you can see, our main goals are at the top, with the increased public funding for the arts education and eliminate inequities in access to and participation in arts education. Then from there, we see the different strategies stem off. So those strategies will help us to get to our main goals. And from there, we see underneath the SMARTIE goals / action items. Those are things that we're going to be working on later in this session. But again, this is just to help you visualize how this process goes. And let's say you pick build a coalition. So thinking of different specific time-oriented goals and action items to facilitate you in achieving that goal. And you can mix and match these things in order to get to our ultimate goal of this program. Does anyone have any questions, anything they'd like to share or that they're noticing with this graphic? If not, that's also okay.
I think, as Allison said, having these not only in the recording, but as standalone slides would be very helpful, because as we build coalitions and people are grasping with the linear, the sequence, it's very clear and would help our teams.
Yes, definitely. We'll make sure those are available to everybody. I see in the chat, Indy said, and I'd be curious about other districts, cities, and the history of parcel tax measures to help fund arts. Okay, let me see. In Berkeley, Oakland, and San Francisco, parcel tax measures have been essential to sustain art funding. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Indy, for the information. Allison, I'm not familiar with the term SMARTIE. What does that stand for? Yes, Allison, so we're actually gonna go over that in the second half. We're leaving a little bit of a cliffhanger, so you do have to stick on to know, but we will definitely get to that. Thank you so much for the question. Great. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to share? It's an open space. Now we can go on to our little mindfulness break, and then we will get to the SMARTIE goals. Great, thank you so much. So this is really, you can pick your own adventure. I will be leading a little bit of a mindfulness exercise. It's a little bit more meditative, but if you'd like to just have a screen break, go get some water, please do so.
Okay. Now our second chapter, Allison, we're gonna end the cliffhanger and give you what you need. So here is an outline of what we mean when we're talking about SMARTIE goals. It's one of those really long acronyms that, like, it becomes so long, it's no longer helpful. That's the risk with it. But here we are, here's your graphic, and we'll repeat this throughout so you'll be able to remember what all of these words mean. The S is for specific. So these are words that are describing the kinds of goals that we're hoping you will be drafting together, first on your own and then together in your group. So you want your goals to be specific, measurable, attainable, reasonable, time-oriented, inclusive, and equitable. It's a tall order. I do want to say there are other sort of versions of this. Please chime in if you know any. I know sometimes the A is achievable, sometimes the R is relevant, the T is time bound, that kind of thing. But you get the idea. And so how I use this and find it to be the most helpful is when I'm drafting a goal, sort of just brainstorm my big picture goal or my goal for the year. And then I go back to this acronym and I use it to help me add details to the goal, refine the goal, make it more clear and specific. Has any, I don't know, maybe a raise of hand or in the chart, is this a tool that other folks have used on this call and found helpful or not helpful? But is this something that's somewhat familiar? Just out of curiosity. Something that I first learned of in my work in development, like grant writing, using this sort of rubric to create goals when writing a grant, which in a way is what you're doing in the action plan. Any questions about this? It's pretty clear and I think helpful. So before we move on, I'm going to put right now in the chat an example of a goal. And I want to get your feedback on it and let me know if you think it is a SMARTIE goal, if there are any tweaks to it, or if you think it looks good. I just put it in the chat. So I'm going to read it aloud. Give public comment at 3 school board meetings between October 2021 and March 2022 about the value of arts education. Share data about inequities in access and ask for inclusion of arts in the LCAP for 2 elementary schools without music programs. So just look at that goal and then run through this, this acronym and see if it's holding up. And please feel free to come off mute if you have suggestions to improve this. Nina says it sounds SMARTIE to her. Connie's good with it. Getting some thumbs up. Okay, so this is, it's a good example. It's an example I pulled and just slightly tweaked from an action plan of a leader last year. So I think it's a great example going into our activity, which I can. Chantal, will you advance the slide? Thank you. I don't know, I seem to have lost it. Indy's asking the hard questions. Did that person follow through on their SMARTIE goal? It's a great question, an important question. Yes, this person did attend those meetings, did make the public comment. So, I mean, it's a big goal. Three times in a school year is a lot. So yeah, with the coalition. Yeah, so it wasn't them speaking each time. That's a really good clarification, Indy, thank you. Not the same person speaking each time, but using the same sort of messaging and representing their coalition. And that's the kind of detail that could be added to make this goal more specific. So it could read, let's see, how would we tweak it? You know, it could start with have 3 different members of the coalition give public comment at 3 school board meetings. That would be another layer of specificity that I think would benefit the goal for sure. Great point. Okay, good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to break into groups, and in our breakout groups. Oh, Chantal, you can go back to the next one with the instruction. Thank you. We're going to go into groups, and the first 5 minutes of your time in the groups, you're going to do an individual reflection, and you're going to think about these questions. So on the timeline, you placed and sort of picked at least one of the strategies, perhaps more than one of the strategies. But think about that strategy and think about how to translate it into a goal. That again is a goal, a shorter term goal, a manageable chunk of work that you could reasonably accomplish between now and the end of May. Think about what is needed for your SMARTIE goal and what success would look like in accomplishing that goal. So we're going to do that for 5 minutes on our own in your breakout groups, and then we will send you a message that you'll receive. And then I want you to go into discussion. And you'll have Caitlin just now put in a link to a Google Doc. So hop in, open up that Google Doc, and that's where you can, during your 5 minutes, find where your group is. When you receive your invitation for the breakout room, you'll see your group number. So find your spot in the Google Doc, start drafting your SMARTIE goal, think about which strategy you'll be using. And then after those 5 minutes in your group, sort of open it up and start discussing, share your goal. I would suggest with each of the goals that you share, sort of run through the SMARTIE acronym, see if you can tweak it to get it more in line with those suggestions. And then you'll have a good amount of time. The bulk of this session is a working session. So, you'll have 25 minutes to do that. And then we'll come back together and take a look at the goals, share out a little bit, and then get into some of the specifics about the actual action planning document if anybody has questions about that. Does that sound like a plan? Caitlin, I see you have a question. Let me just, oh, that's great. You copied in that information. Perfect. Thank you. Is everybody clear? Good to go? Whenever you're ready, Caitlin. All right, are we back together? It looks like the gang's all here. Thank you, everybody. I was, we were tracking your progress in this document. And these are looking really great. I am interested to know how this felt. If the SMARTIE, if that sort of outline of a goal felt helpful, and how you used it. So I guess it's sort of a process question rather than getting into the content of your specific goals, because I know you've talked about that with your group. So anybody want to come off mute and talk about how this SMARTIE was helpful or not helpful?
Connie?
So I picked one, but as I worked on it, I realized I needed to pick another one too, because there was a backstory that needed to happen, probably before I got to that one. So then I started to combine two, and it was a helpful exercise because it made me realize the sequence of what I'm doing. And for instance, I'm jumping to assessing, and really before I get to that point, the school board has to accept, they have to see a presentation. I have to go through the work in order to get to an assessment phase. So I think I went too far down the Likert scale.
No, that sounds great. I mean, it's definitely important to think about how these goals that you will be drafting, like how they're sequenced, how they build upon each other. So that sounds really productive. I see Kelly thought it was helpful. Did anyone feel, I don't know, restricted or frustrated by this acronym?
I have to say, I wasn't restricted or frustrated, but I found that attainable and reasonable is a really good reality check as you're moving through your goals. It's just like that before you dive into the final details, it's like reasonable and attainable are really significant and shouldn't be considered at the end after you work through your ideas, but it's a good reality check as you're working through. So I appreciated those two ideas.
That's great, Debbie. Yeah, and I don't know, for me personally, those attainable, reasonable reality checks are always helpful to have in a group, or have someone provide feedback on the goal, because you can sort of get wrapped up in your own process and forget what really is attainable in the time period, which is an important thing to think about as you're drafting these, to if you have collaborators that you're working on within your coalition, to have this be a collaborative process. Certainly co-write some of these goals, if not, at the very least, run them by someone else to get another set of eyes on them. We're also happy to meet with you before the October 15th deadline, if that's helpful to talk it through with one of us, for sure. Well, great. So I I hope that you will, when you are drafting your other goals, we like to see typically 3 goals in the action plan, which Alexia is going to tell you more about in just a moment. But hopefully you can refer back to this document, think about the goal that you drafted, and take a look at the other kinds of goals that your fellow Arts Now leaders are laying out for themselves. And with that, I'll pass it back to Alexia to get in a little bit more about that document and the different components of it.
Yeah, thank you so much. We'll just wait until it's up on the screen and we can go over it, but I'm sure all of you have, I've actually received a few, so I'm sure a lot of you have looked at this, but we'll just go over it briefly. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask.
Chantal, it's actually the link, the action planning document link. I'm going to take a few, open that one up. Caitlin put it in the chat for everybody. If you don't have it, you've received this in emails from me and Alexia, but here it is again in the chat.
Great. Yes. Thank you so much. So perfect. So we have at the top, big picture goals again, and then the Arts Now strategies, which we went over during this session. And then in that box, you see what are your top goals of the year. So hopefully this session's kind of help you to solidify that, because we also want to acknowledge that it is a shorter period of time and getting different goals done can be more tedious. So really like solidifying those top goals is important. And then we can scroll down, Chantal. Thank you. So here we have goal 1, as you can see, and we have these different boxes. It's just to help you kind of think about the goal. So we have timeline. So thinking of, when would this goal initiate? When would it possibly end? What are like the midpoints of this goal? The strategy that you're going to choose. And then we have first step, actions, and activities. So this is where the SMARTIE acronym can help you in all of those goals that you've already created. You could input right here. And then we have person, group, responsibility. So if you're in a coalition and you want to task individuals within your coalition, you can do that. And also thinking of who may be involved in this specific goal, if it is the school board, etc. And then outcomes, what will success look like? How do you know you've achieved the goal? What does that look like? And then we have goal 2 and goal 3, and it just goes through the same sequence. And then let's see on the bottom, I don't believe there's anything else. There's notes. But Adelaide, if you want to chime in and anything that I'm missing, or if there needs to be anything more specific than that.
No, there really isn't. It's as simple as, we try to make it as simple as possible. So hoping you'll be able to just plug in the goal that you created today and add in a few details. And, when Alexia and I review your action plans that you submit on the 15th, if we have any questions, we'll certainly be in touch and ask you about that and sort of clarification.
Great. So now I think if we move on to our presentation again, I'm seeing here, it's a moment for any questions that anyone has. So please feel free to unmute or drop it in the chat if there's any questions you may have. If there's no questions now, that's totally okay. We can wrap up a little bit earlier. But we do have a reminder slide. So again, October 15th is the deadline for the action plan, and you can send that my way at alexia@createcalifornia.org. And then we will be embarking on the Arts Now meetup sessions. The first one's October 19th at 3:30. You all should have received a flyer with the information and how to sign up for those. And also I'll be sending out my Calendly invite so you can be able to book one-on-one sessions with me. And so I can facilitate you in whatever your needs are regarding Arts Now and your various goals. So, you know, just be on the lookout for that. And then we will also send the deck with all of these different graphs and things that you can use as well. So thank you so much for participating in the Leadership Institute. It has been an honor and a pleasure to be here with all of you and to learn and continue to learn with everybody here.
Thanks, Alexia, and thank
Thank
you all
you.
for being here.